A ruthless millionaire frames an innocent man. Moments before the verdict, the truth exposes his darkest secret. In the heart of New York City, a courtroom buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with tension. The trial of Michael Carter, a humble man accused of embezzlement, was about to reach its verdict. Spectators packed the gallery, their eyes fixed on the proceedings unfolding before them. Journalists scribbled furiously in their notepads, eager to capture every moment of the high-profile case. Sitting in the back, his eyes fixed on the proceedings, was Charles Blackburn, a millionaire feared by all who knew him. With his tailored suit and impeccable appearance, he exuded an aura of power and control. He had built his empire through ruthless tactics and manipulation, crushing anyone who dared to stand in his way. Charles believed himself invincible, untouchable by the law. But now, as he watched the trial unfold, a flicker of unease stirred within him. Michael Carter was innocent, framed by Charles himself to eliminate a potential threat. The man had stumbled upon evidence of Charles's illicit dealings, and rather than risk exposure, Charles had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to silence him. With his vast resources and network of influence, it had been all too easy to paint Michael as a criminal, to bury him under a mountain of false accusations. What Charles didn't realize was that Michael had a connection to someone far more dangerous than he could have imagined, Olivia Grant, a woman of unwavering courage and resilience, who embodied the very essence of justice. She was a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope for the downtrodden and oppressed. As the judge called for order, Charles leaned back in his seat, a smug smile playing on his lips. He had no doubt that the verdict would go his way. After all, he had the best lawyers money could buy, and the evidence against Michael was damning. But little did he know that Olivia Grant was about to turn his world upside down, to expose the truth that he had so carefully concealed. Olivia Grant hurried through the bustling streets of Manhattan, her mind racing with thoughts of the trial. The sounds of the city, the honking of horns, the chatter of pedestrians, the distant wail of sirens, faded into the background as she focused on her mission. She dodged the throngs of people, her steps quick and purposeful, her auburn hair billowing behind her in the warm breeze. She knew Michael was innocent, and she was determined to prove it. As a young lawyer working for a small firm, she had taken on his case pro bono, driven by an innate sense of righteousness. It was more than just a job to her, it was a calling, a chance to make a difference in a world that often seemed so unjust. Olivia thought back to the day she first met Michael, a chance encounter at a local coffee shop. She had been sitting at a table, poring over a stack of legal documents, when she noticed him at the counter. He had been visibly shaken, his hands trembling as he fumbled with his wallet. His eyes, once bright with hope, were now filled with despair as he shared his story with the barista. Intrigued, Olivia had approached him, offering a friendly smile and a listening ear. As Michael recounted his tale, the false accusations, the mounting evidence against him, the fear of losing everything he held dear, Olivia had felt a growing sense of injustice. She had listened intently, her heart aching for the pain and suffering he had endured. "I'll help you," she had promised, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll fight this together." From that moment on, Olivia had dedicated herself to unraveling the truth behind Michael's case. She had spent countless hours poring over documents, interviewing witnesses, and piecing together the puzzle of Charles Blackburn's deception. It had been a daunting task, but Olivia was fueled by a fierce determination to see justice served. As she approached the courthouse, Olivia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the battle ahead. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for the challenge. With a final glance at the imposing facade of the building, she squared her shoulders and pushed through the heavy doors, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As Olivia stepped into her office, she was greeted by a sight that filled her with warmth. Her colleagues, a tight-knit group of lawyers and paralegals, had gathered around a large table covered in documents and evidence. They looked up as she entered, their faces etched with a mix of exhaustion and determination. "We found something," Sarah, one of the paralegals, announced excitedly. She held up a stack of papers, her eyes shining with triumph. A discrepancy in the financial records that could prove Michael's innocence. Olivia's heart leaped with hope as she crossed the room, her eyes scanning the documents that Sarah handed her. It was a small lead, a tiny crack in the facade of Charles Blackburn's carefully constructed lie, but it was a start. She knew they would need more to build a solid case, but with the support of her team, she felt a renewed sense of determination. "Great work, everyone," she said, a smile spreading across her face. She looked around the room, taking in the faces of her dedicated colleagues. "Let's keep digging. We won't rest until justice is served." The team nodded in agreement, their expressions mirroring Olivia's resolve. They had all taken on Michael's case with the same passion and commitment, driven by a shared belief in the power of the law to right wrongs and protect the innocent. As they dove back into their work, the office hummed with energy. The sound of fingers tapping on keyboards, the rustling of papers, and the murmur of voices filled the air. Olivia moved from desk to desk, offering guidance and encouragement, her mind whirring with possibilities. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that Charles Blackburn would stop at nothing to maintain his grip on power. But as she looked around at her team, at the determination etched on their faces, she felt a swell of pride and gratitude. Together, they would fight for Michael, for justice, and for the truth. Miles away, in a lavish penthouse overlooking the sprawling expanse of Central Park, Charles Blackburn sat behind his massive mahogany desk, a glass of expensive scotch in hand. The room was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the soft glow of the desk lamp and the twinkling lights of the city below. He had just received word that Olivia Grant had taken on Michael Carter's case, and a flicker of concern crossed his chiseled face. He had heard whispers about Olivia, a rising star in the legal world known for her tenacity and unwavering commitment to her clients. She was a force to be reckoned with, a thorn in the side of the powerful and corrupt. Charles knew he couldn't underestimate her, but he also couldn't let her unravel his carefully crafted plan. He had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let anyone stand in his way. With a heavy sigh, he reached for his phone and dialed a familiar number. "We have a problem," he said, his voice low and menacing. "I need you to take care of it." The person on the other end of the line responded with a curt acknowledgement, and Charles ended the call with a click. He leaned back in his plush leather chair, his eyes fixed on the city skyline. The lights of the skyscrapers twinkled like stars, a reminder of the vast empire he had built. But as he sat there, sipping his scotch, a nagging sense of unease began to creep into his mind. He had always believed that money and power could solve any problem, that he was untouchable. But now, with Olivia Grant on the case, he couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully constructed world was starting to crack. He shook his head, pushing the thought aside. He was Charles Blackburn, the most feared and respected man in the city. He had crushed countless opponents, destroyed lives and livelihoods without a second thought. Olivia Grant was just another obstacle to be overcome, another challenge to be met head-on. With a final swig of his scotch, Charles rose from his chair, his eyes glinting with determination. He had worked too hard to let anyone stand in his way, and he would do whatever it took to protect his empire. No matter the cost. Olivia stood before Judge Hernandez, her voice steady and clear as she presented her arguments. The courtroom was packed, the gallery filled with spectators eager to witness the high-stakes legal battle unfolding before them. She had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, poring over every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every legal precedent. And now, as she laid out her case, she could feel the weight of the truth on her side. With each piece of evidence she presented, Olivia could see the doubt growing in the eyes of the jury. She had uncovered a trail of inconsistencies in the prosecution's case, each one pointing to Michael's innocence. The false accusations, the fabricated evidence, the web of lies spun by Charles Blackburn, all of it was starting to unravel. But even as she spoke, Olivia could feel the weight of Charles Blackburn's presence in the courtroom. He sat in the back, his eyes boring into her, a silent threat hanging in the air. She knew he would stop at nothing to maintain his grip on power, to bury the truth and destroy anyone who dared to challenge him. Olivia refused to be intimidated. She had faced powerful men before, men who believed themselves above the law, and she had brought them to justice. She knew that the truth was on her side, and she would fight for it with every ounce of her being. As the court adjourned for the day, Olivia felt a surge of hope. They were making progress, chipping away at the lies that had put Michael behind bars. But she knew the battle was far from over. Charles Blackburn was a formidable opponent, and he would not go down without a fight. But Olivia was ready. She had the support of her team, the backing of the community, and the strength of her convictions. She would not rest until justice was served, until the truth was brought to light, no matter the cost. That evening, as Olivia walked home from the courthouse, the streets of Manhattan seemed to hum with a new energy. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the city, bathing the buildings in shades of gold and orange. But even as she basked in the beauty of the evening, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest as she navigated the crowded sidewalks. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her arm, spinning her around. Olivia found herself face to face with a man she didn't recognize, his eyes cold and threatening. He was dressed in a dark suit, his face obscured by the shadows of the buildings towering above them. "Drop the case," he growled, his grip tightening on her arm. "Or you'll regret it." Olivia's fear turned to anger as she wrenched her arm free. She had faced threats before, had stared down men who believed they could intimidate her into submission. But she refused to back down, refused to let fear dictate her actions. "I won't be intimidated," she said, her voice steady and strong. "Tell Charles Blackburn that I won't rest until the truth comes out." The man's eyes narrowed, but he stepped back, melting into the shadows as quickly as he had appeared. Olivia stood there for a moment, her heart racing, her mind reeling. She knew she had just made a powerful enemy, had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. But even as the weight of the threat hung heavy in the air, Olivia felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had taken on this case because she believed in justice, believed in the power of the truth to set things right. And she would not let anyone, not even Charles Blackburn, stand in her way. With a deep breath, Olivia turned and continued on her way, her step a little quicker, her eyes a little more watchful. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, that she would face challenges and obstacles at every turn. But she was ready. She had the strength of her convictions, the support of her team, and the unwavering belief that justice would prevail, no matter the cost. The next morning, Olivia arrived at her office to find a package waiting for her. It was a plain brown envelope, unmarked except for her name scrawled across the front in bold, black ink. With a sense of trepidation, she opened the envelope, her heart pounding in her chest. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a message written in the same bold, black ink, "Last warning. Drop the case." Olivia's colleagues gathered around her, their faces etched with concern. They had all received similar threats, had all been warned to stay away from Michael Carter's case. But they refused to be intimidated, refused to let fear dictate their actions. "You can't let them scare you," Sarah said, placing a comforting hand on Olivia's shoulder. "We're in this together." Olivia nodded, a fierce determination burning in her eyes. She knew that they were up against powerful forces, that Charles Blackburn would stop at nothing to maintain his grip on power. But she also knew that they had the truth on their side, that they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. "I won't let them win," she said, crumpling the note in her fist. "We have to keep fighting, for Michael and for everyone who has ever been wronged by people like Charles Blackburn." With renewed purpose, Olivia and her team dove back into their work, poring over every piece of evidence, searching for the key that would unlock the truth. They worked late into the night, fueled by a sense of urgency and a fierce determination to see justice served. And as the days turned into weeks, Olivia began to see a change in the community around her. People who had once been afraid to speak out against Charles Blackburn were starting to come forward, emboldened by Olivia's example. They offered their support, their resources, their own stories of injustice and corruption. Olivia knew that they were building something bigger than themselves, that they were part of a movement that could not be stopped. And with each passing day, she felt a growing sense of hope, a belief that they could make a difference, that they could change the world for the better, no matter the cost. As the trial progressed, Olivia began to notice a shift in the community around her. People who had once been divided by fear of Charles Blackburn started to come together, united by a common cause. It started with small acts of kindness, a cup of coffee left on Olivia's desk, a word of encouragement whispered in the hallways of the courthouse. But soon, it grew into something more. Olivia's neighbors started showing up at the trial, filling the courtroom with silent support. They sat in the gallery, their eyes fixed on the proceedings, their presence a reminder that the community was watching, that they would not be silenced. Local businesses offered their services, providing meals and supplies for Olivia's team as they worked late into the night. They sent messages of support, offered their resources and expertise, did whatever they could to help in the fight for justice. Olivia felt a swell of emotion as she witnessed the community coming together, drawn by the power of hope and the belief in justice. She knew that together, they could overcome anything, that they could stand up to even the most powerful of enemies. And as the trial wore on, Olivia began to see the impact of their efforts. The prosecution's case was starting to unravel, the lies and fabrications exposed for all to see. The jury was starting to see the truth, to understand the depth of Charles Blackburn's corruption and the injustice that had been done to Michael Carter. Olivia knew that they were close, that they were on the verge of a breakthrough. But she also knew that Charles Blackburn would not go down without a fight, that he would stop at nothing to maintain his grip on power. But even as the challenges mounted, even as the threats grew more dire, Olivia refused to back down. She had the support of her team, the backing of the community, and the strength of her convictions. She would fight until the very end, until justice was served and the truth was brought to light. No matter the cost. As the weeks passed, Olivia uncovered a crucial piece of evidence that could turn the tide of the trial. It was a hidden bank account, one that proved Charles Blackburn's involvement in the embezzlement scheme. She had spent countless hours poring over financial records, following a trail of breadcrumbs that had led her to this moment. And now, as she held the evidence in her hands, she felt a surge of triumph, a sense that they were finally on the verge of a breakthrough. But even as she prepared to present her findings in court, Olivia received a chilling phone call. The voice on the other end was low and menacing, a whisper that sent shivers down her spine. "You have no idea what you're up against," the voice said. "Charles Blackburn will destroy you." Olivia's hands shook as she hung up the phone, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that the threat was real, that Charles Blackburn would stop at nothing to maintain his grip on power. But even as fears threatened to overwhelm her, Olivia refused to let it consume her. She thought of Michael, of the community that had rallied around her, and she knew she couldn't give up. Not now, not when they were so close to the truth. With a deep breath, Olivia gathered her evidence and stepped into the courtroom, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The courtroom was packed as Olivia presented her evidence, her voice ringing with conviction. She laid out the details of the hidden bank account, painting a clear picture of Charles Blackburn's guilt. As she spoke, Olivia could feel the energy in the room shifting. The jury leaned forward in their seats, their eyes widening with each revelation. Even the judge seemed taken aback by the strength of her case. But Charles Blackburn sat stone-faced, his eyes burning with a cold fury. Olivia knew he wouldn't go down without a fight, but she was ready for whatever he had in store. As the court adjourned for the day, Olivia felt a sense of triumph. They were close, so close to the truth. But she knew the final battle was yet to come. The morning of the verdict, Olivia woke with a sense of trepidation. She knew that today would be the culmination of all their hard work, the moment when justice would be served or denied. As she made her way to the courthouse, Olivia was surprised to find a crowd gathered outside. Men, women, and children from all walks of life had come to show their support, their faces filled with hope and determination. Olivia felt a lump form in her throat as she made her way through the crowd, their words of encouragement ringing in her ears. She knew that whatever happened today, she had made a difference. She had shown the world that one person, armed with the truth, could stand up to even the most powerful of adversaries. With a deep breath, Olivia stepped into the courtroom, ready to face the final battle. The courtroom was silent as the judge called for the verdict. Olivia's heart raced as she watched the jury file back into the room, their faces unreadable. In the case of the state versus Michael Carter, on the charge of embezzlement, we find the defendant. Olivia held her breath, her eyes locked on the jury foreman. Not guilty. The courtroom erupted in cheers as Michael's family and friends rushed to embrace him. Olivia felt tears streaming down her face as she watched the scene unfold, a sense of overwhelming relief washing over her. But as she turned to face Charles Blackburn, she saw a look of pure hatred in his eyes. She knew that this was far from over. In the days that followed, the truth about Charles Blackburn's darkest secret began to unravel. Olivia and her team worked tirelessly, piecing together a web of corruption and deceit that stretched back decades. They discovered that Charles had built his empire on a foundation of lies, using his wealth and influence to manipulate the system and crush anyone who stood in his way. He had framed Michael Carter as a warning, a message to anyone who dared to challenge him. But Olivia refused to back down. With the support of the community and the strength of her convictions, she brought Charles's crimes to light, exposing the rot at the heart of his empire. As the authorities closed in, Charles Blackburn finally realized the true power of the woman he had underestimated. Olivia Grant, with her unwavering belief in justice and the courage to stand up for what was right, had brought him to his knees. In the end, Charles Blackburn's downfall was swift and complete. Faced with overwhelming evidence of his crimes, he had no choice but to surrender, his once invincible facade crumbling before the eyes of the world. As Olivia stood on the steps of the courthouse, surrounded by the community that had stood by her side, she felt a sense of profound gratitude. Together, they had proven that no one, no matter how powerful, was above the law. Michael Carter, now a free man, embraced Olivia, his eyes shining with tears of joy. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "You never gave up on me." Olivia smiled, her heart full. "It wasn't just me," she said, looking out at the sea of faces before her. "It was all of us, standing together, fighting for what we believe in." And as the sun began to set over the city, casting a warm glow across the courthouse steps, Olivia knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would not be easy, but with the support of her community and the power of hope in her heart, anything was possible. Together, they had shown the world the true strength of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of unity. Olivia looked to the future with renewed determination, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the face of adversity, she had discovered the most powerful force of all, the unwavering belief in the power of justice, and the courage to fight for it, no matter the odds.